Here's to you, dear listeners, and welcome to a special interview episode of Metal Gear Mondays, the most thorough Metal Gear podcast on the internet. I am charmed to be Sam Wright, and I'm joined by Alessio Summerfield.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey, y'all.
How y'all doing?
How y'all doing?
I wanted to give a quick update on what's happening with the sign-off at the end of these shows.
Oh yeah, the people were very clear about what they wanted to do.
Oh yeah, it's a little intense. So you guys might all remember that at some point a couple episodes ago we talked about potentially not doing It's a Box at the end of these episodes. Yeah, that's not going to change, I don't think, because people came out in force.
Yeah. It was like one person said, yeah, change it, and then everybody else was like, no.
Yeah, never change nothing, ever.
Don't.
Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we updated everybody on that. I mean, if things take a drastic turn for the other way, then maybe we'll say something, but so far, I think we're going.
I think it's mostly just reassurance that it actually is funny, because we've been trying our best for years now. Yeah, as we're looking at it right now, it's one person says no, and 15 people said keep it. So,
yep. So I know what we're keeping.
So thanks for that.
Sorry to derail the episode.
Yeah, that's fine. To bring us back into focus, we've been on a pretty solid streak, interviewing cool people for the podcast and talking to folks involved with the Metal Gear series, and this time we had a chance to talk to Meryl Silverburgh herself, Debi Mae West, who is an actual badass.
Yeah, she is a fucking bona fide, like rock solid, fucking amazing human being.
She mentions I think close to the beginning of the interview that like when she was growing up she wanted to be a rock star, and I was like, I think she is a rock star.
Yeah, you did it, Debbie. Congratulations.
You did it, just in a different way. In a different kind of way, but she's out here living her life, being a badass.
Yeah, not all rock stars have guitars, so
exactly. So yeah, but we had a really good time talking to her. We just broke down in the middle and started talking about music, which is fucking awesome. Like it was a very good interview. We had a very good time talking to Debbie.
Yeah, would do it again. 10 out of 10 would do it again. So
10 out of 10, 11 out of 10.
Yeah, if at any point, if at any point we're super down in the dumps, I might just like reach out to Debbie and be like, "Look, Sam and I we're real down these days. Can we just talk to you for 30 minutes, please?"
Yeah, just about like not even about anything video game related, just whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, she's great. So
yeah,
I'm excited for people to listen to this.
Very, very much so. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We got some fun insight into the process. We actually got a little bit of a answer about the whole Twin Snakes thing with the voice actors coming back, which is pretty cool. And that one just came out of nowhere. We weren't expecting that at all, but yeah.
Debbie also interviews us in the middle of this.
Yeah, she just kind of flips. She takes the tables and she flips them on us. So,
very politely and discreetly.
Yes.
Like I didn't even notice it was happening, and then suddenly.
Yeah. So you get to hear a little bit. I think we definitely talked about it on our on an extra op several months ago, but you get to hear kind of like the brief origins of Metal Gear Mondays in the middle of an episode with Debi Mae West. So, and we also discuss how she does a lot of voiceover work for like grocery stores and stuff, and how
she said Save a Lot, right?
Safeway
or Safeway is what I was thinking. Yeah, that's good.
So she did Safeway. She did Safeway years ago, and then she does Fred Meyer. For anybody in this side of the country knows Fred Meyer.
I have expected her to just be like Ann Kroger and Publix and.
Well, Fred Meyer is a Kroger offshoot, so there's a chance they might use her voice for Kroger too. I don't know.
I gotta keep an ear out. Yeah, as she was listing stuff, I was like, "Fuck, Debbie? Do you voice like every aspect of our lives?"
Yeah, like, I was sitting here. She was listing off things. I was just like, "Fucking!" I've been just hearing Meryl in everywhere and not even realizing it.
Subconsciously, is just the voice of everyone.
Mm-hmm. It was like if cotton's the fabric of our lives, then Debi Mae West is the voice of our lives. You know what I mean? But yeah, so we had a really good time talking to her, and before we get into it, I guess we'll talk about our stuff.
Yeah, we should probably plug, because I guess we just don't do outros on interviews, which is great. I think this is a much better way to streamline
Yeah,
these.
I think so too. So we'll just.
Oh, you know what we did forget though? We forgot on both Dean and Meryl, or excuse me, Dean and Debbie. Good God, my brain. I promise I know what fiction is. We didn't ask either of them to give us an It's Just a Box.
We didn't, and you know what? Whatever.
Yeah, right.
At this
I'm
point,
just gonna throw one in just at random.
At this point, I love that I love that we talked about the poll at the top of this intro, and now we're just like, eh.
I had to set it up, Sam. I had to set it up so that we could knock it down.
Yeah. Gotta tear the establishment down.
Of course. We have to know what we're tearing down before we tear it
down. But yeah, so you can build us up and not tear us down by going to patreon.com/MetalGearMondays.
You can build us up on Patreon, but you can tear us down on tweets and Facebook comments.
Definitely don't add us. We are fragile boys. And we cannot take it.
Yeah, we promise that we might look like we can take it, but then Sam and I will just be calling and texting each other about how sad we are.
I'm going to be real with you. Let's get real for a second.
Oh, God.
I had kind of a shit weekend this past weekend. And except for seeing John Wick. I saw John Wick, and it was very, very good.
Did a certain email make you even more upset? Because it made me pretty upset.
Probably. I need to re-look at it. But
I'll talk to you about it off mic.
Okay. But I just like some stuff happened, and I've been very transparent, obviously, about like my struggles as a person, and sometimes you just wake up and you just have bad days, and it was kind of like slowly going downhill, and just like little things were stacking up. It's just like, oh, wrestling sucked on Sunday, and Game of Thrones was bad. And it was just these little things like stacking on top of more serious stuff. And all I wanted, the only thing I ever wanted in the world was taco time. And so I drive down the road to the taco time, where the taco time is supposed to be located in my town where I live. No. And I
like that you say supposed to be.
And I try to turn in, and there's a gate. So I was like, oh shit. So I have to like keep going and turn into the McDonald's parking lot, and I park. They're remodeling taco time, and the building was completely torn down. And I was parked sitting in a McDonald's parking lot, and I just started sobbing. Like it was just like the last straw. So if anybody ever questions,
Sam entered falling down from that.
Yeah, it was just like I said. So I just like sat. I went to McDonald's. I got a cheeseburger and a fucking Sprite, and I just sat in the parking lot eating it, real sad. And I was just like, it's like, so if anybody ever questions my status as a soft boy, just remember this boy sobbed over fucking tacos. I'll never forget.
I love it. That's amazing. I'm sorry that you had that experience, Sam. But
no, you can laugh. It's funny. Looking back at it, it's funny.
Oh,
but yeah. So all that to say, don't add us.
Yeah, we will cry about
it. But no. So Patreon, $1 a month. We have a Discord that we have a lot of listeners on that love to chat about stuff, and they would love to chat to you.
We got people standing by to chat with you. 1-888
Sexy singles in your area. No.
Sexy welders on our Discord want to talk to
all of our listeners.
You know who I'm talking about.
All of our listeners are sexy. So let's get one thing straight. But yeah, so $2 a month, you get all the episodes of the podcast early. There was a point in time where people who donated at $2 a month got 4 episodes in the same day to listen to, which is buck wild. And you also get an extra podcast called The Patriot Club, where we just kind of bullshit about whatever the fuck we want to bullshit about. So it's, we talk about games, talk about shows, we talk about whatever we want.
I wonder if after this episode we should call it the Lolly Lule Club. Just in honor of Debi Mae West.
And sing it every time. Yeah, so check that out. We have a couple of other higher tiers, but those are you can donate as much as you want or as none as you want if you want. We still love you, and there are other ways to support us. And you can find out.
We haven't had
Yeah,
an
we have
iTunes review in
not
a
had an
while.
iTunes review in a while.
That'd be
Go on
great.
iTunes, leave us a review, and that helps us get seen on iTunes. So yeah, and if you and all of the stuff where you can listen. I mean, you're listening to it, so you know where you can listen, obviously. But just how to support us. Just
Unless we're on at a party. If this is ambient party sound, one, question the party you're at, and two, you can find us on
yeah,
Spotify,
and
iTunes,
everywhere you
Google
can find
Play.
us and support us is on metalgearmondays.com. So check that website out. That's our source of truth for everything. That's where everything is.
Yeah, I check that to figure out what the weather's going to be like, and it's not
Yeah.
helpful at all.
No, I check that to figure out what the bus schedule is going to be, and really, it's been a nightmare, but I still do it.
I'm sorry, I'm
So,
extra punchy because it's later in the night and I've been very tired all day.
yeah, but it's, whatever. But yeah, so really quickly, Alessio, where can they find you on the internet?
Hi there. You can find me at acsummerfield.com. I'm more than likely blogging about a film by the time you're listening to this. I may have already shot that film by the time you're listening to this. I
Oh,
don't
damn.
know. But you can find me there. areyoualrightfilm.com is the project that I'm working on. Or you can find me AC Summerfield on Twitter or pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter at Sanjul. That's SANJUUL. That's about it. Yeah, I guess let's talk to Debi Mae West and just have a real good time doing it.
I love her. Button and we're in it. So perfect. Well, Debi, thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is kind of weirdly what's the word I'm looking for here? Coincidental. I was speaking with a gentleman named Dean Schofield earlier today.
I know Dean Schofield. I haven't seen him in a very long time, but we actually didn't work together on Metal Gear Solid, but I know he was in the game. But I think we used to have the same agent, so
Oh, nice.
I've seen him over the years, but it's been a really long time. That's nice. You guys did an interview today?
Yeah, it was actually around lunchtime. I took a long lunch and talked to Dean for about an hour. He's a really cool guy. I had no idea half the stories that he had for me, and it was really cool.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice.
I got to tell him what happened with Johnny after all these years. I guess he never knew what happened in Metal Gear Solid 4 for obvious reasons.
That Johnny married me.
Yeah, I was like, dude, you got the girl. You got the girl.
You did it.
Yeah, he asked if Johnny was still crapping his pants. I said yes, of course.
Yes, the farter. I think that was really hilarious. I loved that. That was the funniest storyline.
It was very bizarre, but yeah, I think you've been in so much that it was interesting to go back through and look at everything. But I wanted to ask you just to kind of get us started. How in the hell does one get their first gig out the gate as a Disney character?
Well, it's a funny story because I was a singer. I went to music school and I was in a band in the 90s. And that was kind of what I really wanted to be a rock star. But I started kind of dabbling in learning about voiceover because a friend of mine said, you really have a unique voice and you should really think about it. And women were starting to really get more jobs at that time in the early 90s. And Pamela Adlon, who is Bobby on King of the Hill, she came to see my band. I think she was a friend of my friend Paul. And I remember sitting with her at a table and I was kind of asking her about getting into voiceovers. And she just sort of made it seem like it was really almost impossible. And I understand now it really is. It's almost like a fluke to have a career in voiceover because now more than ever, more and more people are doing it. But back then it was a very tight knit group of people that were lucky enough to work. But I used to have this reoccurring dream my whole life because I grew up in LA, and I had this Disneyland dream that I was trying to get on Space Mountain for literally my whole life. And so after I met Pam, I kind of ended up getting an agent, and I was really, really trying to get jobs. And then I did book one really big gig, which took me in one day from being a waitress to never being a waitress again. I was the voice of Safeway grocery stores. But then the very next gig that happened was because I was at I was at a voiceover workout group. And the last night, the director of 101 Dalmatians came as a guest speaker. And so I went back to my agent and said, "Oh, I met this guy, Terry Ward. He was in the movie Grease. He's directing 101 Dalmatians." And I was just, just sort of reporting to my agents that I was doing my due diligence and working hard at trying to, meet people. And so 2 weeks later, my agent called and said, Pamela Siegel was her name at the time, was pregnant, and she was leaving the show 101 Dalmatians, and she played Lucky. And she wanted me to match her voice. And I thought, there's no way I can match her voice. But I did. And I booked my very first, big job was doing the voice of the girl who pretty much told me I probably would never be able to do voiceovers.
That's amazing.
And I say that really with, humility, because I don't think I was very good at it. And I was working with the top animation actors. And the only reason I got it is because of my scratchy, deep voice. And I'm a good imitator, and I really imitated her well. But I don't think I did a great job. And I actually think once she came back around and was done with her maternity leave, I think she might have even revoiced some of my shows. But I did a bunch of shows. And so anyway, but then I had the dream, and I got on Space Mountain, and I never looked back. And I've had a 25-year incredible career in voiceovers.
That's amazing. We just recently spoke with Quentin Flynn not too terribly long ago, and actually I think it was like last week.
You
last Friday.
talked with
Yeah, and it was interesting just hearing from him how much work there is in like the sound-alike world.
Yes.
And it seems like that's been sort of the trend from a lot of the folks that we've talked to in general. How important, like if somebody's listening to this and they want to potentially get into voice acting, how important would you say impressions are to breaking in?
Well, I don't think they're really important to breaking in, to be fair. I think they're really important. Well, for one, in animation, I don't really do a lot of animation or games anymore. I mostly do promos and commercials and movie trailers and narration. I still audition for a lot of animation, but I'm not really in that club anymore. So I think that the top animation actors, they will use an impression of someone to create a character. So, and that can just be a fantastic thing. I mean, like I have a debt on Joan Rivers, so I got to do Joan Rivers a couple of times, but, but in movie trailers, which is what I do a lot of, in movie trailers, you have to match people's voices almost on a daily basis. But that being said, if you're new in voiceover, you're not even going to have an opportunity to read a movie trailer. So that's a real specialty. So I actually have a manager just for that. So most people, I would say anyone trying to break in at this point, if you want to do video games, you have to have at least 15 to 20 characters that are completely different from one another. So you might be able to do some accents, and you might be able to do a couple of impressions, but you have to be a really good actor. I think more than being an impressionist, you have to be a great actor to do animation or video games. And then to do commercials, promos, trailers, and the rest, having a great voice helps, but you still have to be a great actor. You have to understand how to stick out, because you're mostly auditioning against, sometimes, if you're lucky, 30 or 40 people, but mostly several hundred people. So why, how do you sell a car better than the other 300 people? So it's not necessarily impressions. It's just really being a great actor, in my opinion.
Right on. That's awesome.
So you were doing characters for Disney and Superman, and you did Secret of Nim 2 and a bunch of stuff before you did Metal Gear. So when you were transitioning into doing something like Metal Gear, was that a little bit more risky at the time? Did it feel a little bit more indie in comparison to some of the other stuff you were doing?
Well, Metal Gear, when we first recorded it, so Chris Zimmerman, the director, amazing director who directed all the Metal Gear series, she worked, I think, at Hanna-Barbera. I met her, once I booked 101 Dalmatians, that was like a really big deal. So I sort of got my foot in the door in the animation world. And so I had the opportunity to meet a lot of casting directors. And Chris Zimmerman and I just really took to one another. So when I booked Metal Gear, it was just because of a great audition, and my voice just happened to be what they were looking for. So, and we had no idea that game was going to be as huge of a hit as it was, because it was a breakout game. Like, it was the first game, I think, that where they would stop and actually do a scene, and the characters actually had lives other than just lines. So it was a much more complicated game than had really been put out at that point, is what I've heard. So, like I said, I've never played a video game ever. I'm not, I've been in probably 40 or 50 of them, but back then when we first did it, it was a very small opportunity. Like, we didn't really know, and then it just became this huge franchise. So there wasn't really anything behind it in terms of me planning for my future. And it's kind of like, in the world of acting, in the world of voiceover, you have an agent, and you just audition and audition and audition, and then you kind of find your way based on what you book. And I just happen to be a really versatile voiceover actor, so I've been able to do everything. I do everything from animation, video games, trailer, commercial, promo, phone messages for companies. So I happen to be able to do all those things, but I never really had a game plan. The only thing I did was, I love relationships with people. So when I meet people that I work with, I really try to stay in touch with them and become friends with them. And but I never had a real game plan, or knew whether this was more of a risk than anything else. I mean, I think the biggest risk I took was playing Joan Rivers as a talking vagina on Drawn Together. That was the risk. And it was awesome.
which I remember watching. So,
yeah, it was my favorite job ever.
Another person that we talked to previously was Cam Clark, who discussed the idea of, like, when you work on video games in the 90s, it was a lot of repetition and it was kind of a chore almost to do video game voiceover work. How would you describe working on video games in the late 90s and early 2000s? Would you kind of concur with that, or?
Well, I would concur. I think for guys, probably back then it was a lot harder. Because they have to do, now we all do, but I think a lot of the real hardcore fighting was really done by the guys. But for me, I don't even remember if I did a game before Metal Gear. It might have been my first game. But I got to work side by side with David Hayter. So every time I recorded for Metal Gear, I was pretty much in a room with David acting, which was unheard of. You rarely get to, in a game, be with other actors. In cartoons, they try to have the cast together, and you're not always together, but you're playing and it's fun and you can work off of each other. But I was so lucky that I got to work with, David Hayter was, when he did Metal Gear, he was just about to become this rising writer, and the Incredible Hulk and the X-Men, and it was just before he got a big break as a writer. And but he was amazing. Solid Snake was a very cool voice. And years later, that he asked for more money when Metal Gear made a lot of money, and they wanted us to all re-record it. he basically said, well, I want more money because I know how much money you're making. And they tried to match his voice and they couldn't. And
Oh, wow.
so that was pretty amazing to watch. And he was actually the reason that a lot of us made more money because he stood up for all of us. But so my experience is definitely not Cam Clark's experience. But I would say that video games are very hard on your voice. I actually had to go have surgery after doing a video game.
Oh, wow.
And I had a polyp on my vocal cord, which was really scary. But that was only a few years ago. So I would say, again, I don't really do a lot of video games anymore. So I don't know if the repetition is different now than it was in the 90s. I would say Cam Clark is probably much better at answering that because I think he still does a lot of that work.
Right on. Would you would you say that you prefer the work that you're doing now over what maybe you were doing back then?
I love what I'm doing now because I work at home. I have a home studio. I do a lot of sports promos. So that's my favorite thing to do. I do a lot of sports promos for NBC, NBCSN, and the Olympic Channel, and Fox Sports, and I do stuff for NFL Network, and that's actually really fun for me because they're quicker jobs. They're easier on my voice. I love doing commercials. I love doing movie trailers. I also love animation. I would love, and I think I'm feeling closer and closer to booking another animated series because I think my auditions are really solid right now. But I did kind of take a step back from that for a while and put a lot of my energy into promos. So I was the voice of HGTV networks for 7 years, and
nice.
I've been the voice of Smithsonian Channel and Nickelodeon, and I've done stuff for MTV, and I love promos because they're really fast jobs. And I became a surfer a couple of years ago, so I work and then I go surfing and I come home and work again. And in the world of animation and games, it's a lot longer. You have to give a lot more time. And so I just, I'm a little older now. I'm still a very, very young person, but I definitely enjoy my time being near the beach and just kind of having other things that I do alongside my voiceover career. So I really am. I'm kind of in a really good pocket right now that I'm very happy about.
That's awesome. Well, and I hope that continue. I hope you continue to ride that wave, if I may be so.
That's
so
good.
funny.
Thank you. A couple of waves just today.
No.
Hang loose, dude.
Debbie, I mean, other than the instance that you just cited with you having to get like vocal cord surgery, which sounds insane and intense, do you have like and maybe like the answer could be that time. Do you have like a most challenging role that you've been in before, or something that really just like pushed you to your limit?
Oh, for sure. The Blizzard game that I played Maiev Shadow Song in the World of Warcraft, and that's a very long historical character that I've been playing for 15 years, and she's in a really deep place in my voice and very intense, and she's not a monster, but like she's the warden. She's the wardeness. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I'm Game of Thrones. I'm Debi Mae West Side wardeness of wardeness of the Abbots of Kenny. But so that's a hard voice, and so they're nice to me though. Like they let me come in for 2 hours at a time instead of the 4 hours that most people have to go in. But that's definitely been the most challenging game for me and the most challenging voice. But I think for me what's challenging is that I've always had kind of a weaker, huskier voice. So even with music, I've always been challenged by kind of some weak vocal cords, and I don't sing the way that I used to and work my voice out the way that I used to. So I have to be really good to myself. So like if I have a late night out, then I'm probably going to be more challenged the next day. So I just have to really take care of myself because I do have a tender little voice.
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect of what you do that I don't think. I mean, we've talked to a few voice actors now, and I don't know how much sort of self care has played into those conversations. So I'm really glad that you touched on it because I definitely have heard not just with voice actors but even singers that it's like a really big part of what you guys do.
Well, I'm not going to lie because I don't do a lot of it. I do. I really like. I do like wing it often, but I'm pretty. I know myself very well, so I can always tell like on a Saturday that I'm not going to talk on Sunday. So if I have a fun night, if I'm in a loud room and with I live in a quite a lively part of Los Angeles, so if I go to a restaurant or if I'm at a bar and I'm talking with people, I know my voice is going to be unhappy the next day. So I will generally, spend Sundays alone and I won't talk to people or I'll do a lot of texting and I'll take it easy. But I don't have like a hardcore routine. I also because my texture is kind of my moneymaker. So I don't always want to sound super clear and super pretty.
Mm.
I like having that texture. So I will warm up a little bit in the mornings. I think there are other people who probably do a lot more than I do.
Well, I appreciate you donating the time spent talking for an extended period of time to us even more now.
No problem. No. I could go do a gig right now. What else you got?
We've got a listener question actually from a listener of the show, Tori Cortez. She asks, "What is your favorite role that you've had over the years and why?"
Well, definitely my favorite role. Well,
you can't say Fred Myers or
no. But I will say my favorite piece of work that I can show people is that Joan Rivers as the talking vagina of the Disney princess on Drawn Together. It was a real gift. It was a really fun day of work. And actually, the engineer that I've worked with on Fred Meyer for 16 years, he watched that show and he recorded it. And he actually made a little movie trailer in homage to me as the voice of Joan Rivers' vagina.
Oh my God.
But it's just really funny. And I married a farting dude in Metal Gear. I think fart jokes are hilarious. I love humor. I like sideways humor. So Joan Rivers as a talking vagina is just hysterical to me. And she actually was on Howard Stern talking about it, that she learned about it. And so I'm so proud that before she left the building, so to speak, that she got to see it. I never got to meet her. I always wanted to meet her and kind of have a little head to head with her. So that was definitely one of my favorite gigs. I get to announce all the Pro Bowl players every year and the draft picks on the NFL Network every year. And that's really fun for me because I know that, people are really into sports. And so that's kind of a cool gig.
Well, before we started recording, you did bring up an enthusiasm for one Patrick Mahomes before.
Oh, I love him. So
she shamed me for losing my football
I've actually gotten to say his name, and I like basketball a lot, but football I'm in and out of. But because of NFL Network, I do watch. And last season, that kid just blew me away, and so I was a Kansas City fan years ago, and then he brought me right back in, and so I'm rooting for him. I think he's a real star, and I can't wait to see what that guy does. And I'm so happy I got to say his name.
Agreed. I was watching him during the playoffs last year was wild just to like see him go. I was upset that they lost that game.
Me too. Oh, it was horrible. And I'm in LA, so the Rams. I'm so done with New England. Like I'm just ready for something new to happen. But I do want to say one more thing about another favorite character was that I am very proud of Meryl Silverburgh, and not just because I did I do an amazing job. I was just kind of really playing my voice and playing off of David. And I think we did a really cool job together. But I think there are a lot of people that I've met over the years that just love that game so much still to this day. And so it's fun for me to meet people, even maybe an Uber driver, or, when people start to ask me what I do, and if I get around to asking them if they have played games, and then Metal Gear comes up, people just freak out. And when I say I was Meryl, they freak out. And I've met a lot of really nice people over the years that just are so enthusiastic that
Yeah.
I
Your natural speaking voice is very much like just Meryl. And
yeah.
so like if I was like walking down the street and I heard you speak, I would probably do a double take.
Well, I have to tell you, weirdly, about a month ago, I was in an Uber and I was with 3 girlfriends, and we were coming home from something downtown, and the Uber driver literally at one point, I guess I said my name because I think I was the one that called the Uber. And then he was like, "Are you Debi Mae West?" And I was really taken aback. And he's like, "I'm a huge Metal Gear fan." And he's like, "Are you Meryl?" And I was like, "What is going on?" And he said, "I'm listening to you girls talk." And I kept thinking to myself, I know that voice. I know that voice. And that is the only time that happened in my career of voiceover. There was one other show. We have a national public radio station here. Our local station is KCRW here in Los Angeles. And years and years ago, I was on a show with a fantastic writer, actor, storyteller named Joe Frank. And I was a storyteller on his show right when I kind of started getting into voiceover. And one time I was buying a ticket to a concert in a record store, and a guy said, "Are you Debi Mae West?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And he remembered me he realized who I was from the Joe Frank series. So it's only happened twice, but just a month ago was really, it was so bizarre. It was cool though. Yeah.
That's really cool.
What kind of music? What kind of music does Debi Mae West listen to?
Oh gosh, I love to dance, so I'm super into house music. But I was just I sang in a 40-piece big band when I was 19. But I've seen Radiohead 19 times. I've gone all over the world. I'm a major Radiohead freak. I just saw the Chemical Brothers the other night.
Be Still My Heart. Debbie, what are you saying?
Yeah, I'm really into electronic music, but like I have every ticket to every concert I've ever been to. I would tell you the year, but I guess everyone knows how old I am. But anyway, I've been seeing shows since 1978, and I have every ticket to every concert I've ever been to, from Yes to Bruce Springsteen, and every rock show you can imagine, and then tons of electronic music.
I'm convinced.
That's awesome.
You said Yes. I'm convinced that Roundabout might be the greatest song ever made.
Oh, that's awesome! I've had 5 occasions to meet John Anderson, and he is one of my all-time idols. I just think he's so cool, and his voice is amazing.
That's fantastic.
That's crazy. What's your favorite? Your favorite show you've ever been to off the top of your head?
Top of my head would be Radiohead in Nîmes, France. A few, maybe 5 years ago now, they had an accident in Canada. Their stage collapsed and the drum tech was killed, a very young dude. And they canceled a lot of their shows. And then I was at the first show when they came back, and I happened to be in France, and I went by myself to this Roman, it was like this cathedral, this beautiful, it's called La Reine. It was an arena, a Roman arena, but in France. And they did this incredible show that was, not as rockin' as they would. And then at the end, they played Reckoner, and the guy's picture came up in lights. And it was just sort of a little funeral for him. And then the next day I went back and saw the show again. And it was like one of the most rocking shows ever on planet Earth. And I have the poster and my tickets framed and hanging in my house. So I'm amazed. I think Radiohead is the greatest live band ever, 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 ever. And I've seen a lot of bands.
Along those lines, I was super caught off guard. So I love Radiohead and I love Tom York, and I've never seen them live, but I did see Tom here in St. Louis a couple months ago, and it was just Tom, and he played some of his music from Suspiria. And I just, out of every live vocalist I've ever heard, it's insane how that guy's voice could just like penetrate your soul.
Yep,
It
he
was
penetrates your soul.
wild. It was super cool.
I,
But
I
yeah,
met Tom York so when I when I turned 50, I put on Facebook, one of you 2,000 acquaintances has to know where Tom is DJing around LA, because he lives here now and he DJs around LA. And
oh wow,
and it turned out that my boyfriend at the time was looking for a bartender job, and he went to this really cool club, and they started talking. We had literally just seen Atoms for Peace, his band that he did with Flea, twice. And so they had their after party there at this place called No Vacancy. And he said, oh my gosh, my girlfriend would freak out. And they said, oh, well, he's playing tomorrow night. You should bring her. So I got to go, and I gave him a really cool Burning Man necklace, and we had a little moment. We talked about that concert that I just spoke of. And I told him that I was there in Nîmes, and he's a cool dude. I'm shy to speak with him because it was overwhelming, and I kind of didn't know what to say, but I did get to have a moment with him.
That's super cool.
that's awesome.
Man, we could probably talk about this for the rest of the for the rest of the show if we wanted to.
Yeah. I feel like somewhere on my bucket list is talk to Meryl about Tom York, and I can scratch that off now. So thank you, Debbie.
I wonder if I could like sing "La Le Lilo Lou" to some sort of like "La Le Li, La Le Li."
That's so
La Le
crazy.
Lilo Lou, La Le Lilo Lou. I never even thought of that one.
That's phenomenal.
That's funny. That's good.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, where do we go from here? So you've brought up, and everybody that we've talked to so far has had very kind words to say about Chris Zimmerman. So thank you for continuing that trend. When you were working on Metal Gear, did she have kind of a vision for you, and you kind of followed it, or did you have some creative flexibility? Because working directly with David when you were doing it, how much creativity were you allowed to have with the lines?
Well, we didn't really get to improv. Sometimes you can add something, but the lines are pretty. They're written. But Chris is just one of those directors that her heart is so in it, and she knew the game so well. Because I mean, we're talking thousands of pages of dialogue, and we show up. We've already signed a non-disclosure form. So I've never seen the words. And I never saw them again. So I walk into a studio and I'm looking at the script and basically kind of right there on the fly, having to figure out where I'm coming from, what's happening. So because Chris is such a good director and she knew exactly what was going on, she just made it really easy. And I'm not an on-camera actor. I only do voiceovers. So I've studied acting. I took a lot of acting classes over the years, but I'm not one of those people who is a true actor and then happened to fall into voiceover. I'm a singer who happened to fall into voiceover with acting chops and acting skills, but I don't have like major acting technique. She has directing technique that is extraordinary, and so she just made it very easy for me. And also I wasn't putting on a voice. I mean, this is Meryl right here. I was basically down here talking, and I'm a tough chick. I'm fun. Like I am Meryl. Like if you saw me, I just found my Meryl doll the other day. I was cleaning out my shed, and I found a Meryl doll, and I was like, it really looks like me. Like back then I had like fun red hair, and so I just kind of like did me as a tough renegade, soldier. Can you hear Jorge, my cat? He's like, "Where's my fucking dinner?"
Bring Jorge in as much as you want. It's fine. We're
Well, Hefe's here now too, the dog, but he's not talking.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have an Italian Greyhound, Jack Russell. He looks like a little fawn because he has no tail.
That's
and
crazy.
Long legs. And then he has a brother named Jorge, who's an orange tabby ragdoll, beautiful coon, gorgeous cat.
Aw,
that's excellent. We're big. We are very big animal fans here on Metal Gear Mondays.
How did you guys meet up, and what brought this together? What's your show about?
Oh man.
oh man.
No, we're getting grilled.
You're the first person to turn the tables. Yeah. Oh no.
Just for a minute, just so
yeah, absolutely. So we started doing this podcast close to 4 years ago. But it started out. It's not a thing anymore. But I had a website that I was a part of that was like a geek kind of topic website where we would write stuff, and I met Alessio on accident because he went to school with one of the people that started the website, and he was brought in by that person. And so Alessio started doing an article series about Metal Gear on the site. And once we kind of noticed that the site was like not doing so well with the article writing, we decided to turn it into a podcast because that was one of the things we bonded over was our love of the series. And so it just kind of went on from there.
Oh,
there
Hefe's barking. They're both like, dinner? Where's my dinner?
Yeah.
Meow, meow. I have a question. Oh gosh, his name is escaping me. Who became Snake? Sorry.
Oh, Kiefer Sutherland?
Kiefer. So where are you guys? David Hayter, Kiefer Sutherland?
We stand for David all the way.
Yeah. Isn't that a terrible mistake? Why did they do that? I never understood.
No idea.
Well, we've never quite understood it either. I think before the game came out, the fan theory was that David was voicing like a young Solid Snake in the game, so they didn't want to double dip. But then when the game came out, like there just is no David Hayter at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. We were all pretty pissed off about it, and yeah, I think to this day, like there's never really been a straight answer given from anybody.
I think they thought it was going to sell more, and they and by the way, like, how can you sell more of like one of the top selling games of all time?
Right.
Like, what more do you need? And why on earth would you take the star? I mean, yeah, Kiefer Sutherland was doing 24, and he's got a really cool voice too, but I think Solid Snake was David Hayter, and I don't know. I think it was really disrespectful to take that away from him.
What I think was the biggest slap in the face with it too was Kiefer Sutherland doesn't talk much of anything in that game. Like Snake has almost 0 lines in that entire game. Like you can count on.
Was that 5?
Yeah,
Metal Gear 5? Because I was in 4. And David and I were that was great. Coming back and working with him again was so cool. And then the guy that played Johnny, what's his name? Oh, he's got a great name. Do you guys know who played Johnny? I haven't seen him in so long.
Yeah, so we've been kind of working our way through like the games in kind of chronological order with getting interviews established. So I actually have not gotten to the MGS4 like crew, but I can look him up real quick.
Bang Spies.
Yeah, Bang Spies.
What a name.
He's a really cool dude. And yeah, he's really awesome. I haven't seen him since, but that was the last time we got to work together. Yeah, Bang Spies. And then he has a brother also,
Lark. Wow.
Yep.
Very cool.
Aren't those cool names?
Those are awesome names.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, we're I was actually going to save this for a little bit later, Debbie, but now I feel like we need to ask. And we asked so Quentin Flynn, we asked him the same question. So I'm hoping we can get a little bit of a different answer from you. We're hopefully going to be meeting Cam and David in the flesh in Seattle this coming weekend. And we're trying to see if we could find any like little inside jokes or anything that we can say to David to let him know that like, hey, we know what's going on. We're not just some like random fanboys. So I was curious if you had any inside scoops on something goofy we could say.
I don't. I haven't seen David in a really long time. My last sort of communication with him was that I was sitting in a bar probably 6 years ago. And I don't even think this is going to help, but this was my last communication with him. Was I was sitting in a bar and I didn't really understand Twitter, and I was on it, but I wasn't really tweeting. And I saw him and I was like, oh, hey, David Hayter, what's going on? And he was like, oh my God, everybody, look who's here. It's Meryl. And my phone just started blowing up and all these people started following me. And I still don't tweet, but I will soon because I just did an amazing Nike commercial and I'm going to tweet about it. But
Nice.
I don't really have any inside info on David. Like I wish that I did. What did Quentin say?
Quentin said Quentin didn't have one for us, but he resorted to just recording a clip of himself saying, "Don't be a dick, do the interview."
Oh,
yeah, that was a good one.
Is he being a dick about doing an interview?
No, it's just really hard to get a hold of him.
Yeah, we've both him and
I don't know
Chris.
what he's doing, but is he still writing films and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think
so.
he was. Unfortunately, it was like around the time that there was like a gun scare. But I think he was at Netflix's office a couple months ago. I guess talking about something, and I saw on Twitter that I guess somebody thought somebody had a gun in the building, and so he was tweeting from the building in the middle of the emergency. But I assume he was there to talk about a show that he's working on or something. But who knows? So,
yeah, I haven't seen him. I'm sorry, I can't. Wait, so you're meeting them where?
Outside of Seattle, there's a small town called Renton, and we're going to the Renton City Retro to meet David and Cam at a convention.
Oh, it's like one of those gamer conventions?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. I've only done one. I spoke at the Blizzard
nice.
convention. They're really odd. I don't at our time. I would love to go. I was in I was on the show Naruto for many, many years.
Yeah, you were Tsunade.
Yeah. Tsunade, the fifth Hokage.
My roommate is a huge anime fan, and I let him know that that we were talking to you, and he goes, ask her how it feels to be one of the most powerful ninja of all time.
It feels amazing because I'm, I do. She also kind of was like me, like she wore a bindi, and back in the day when I would go to raves and Burning Man, I wore a lot of bindis, and and she would like drink and gamble and then kick ass, but she was a medicine woman, and I'm interested in those kind of arts on the planet here. I like the unusual and things that seem impossible, and I do personally have a lot of pretty amazing magical experiences, and even my career has been like one after the next. So I'm kind of I think that I am like a freaking ninja in real life.
Ninja badass.
I'm a ninja badass.
Well, in a weird way too, I think you and I'm not sure if you know this or not. So Meryl was in a game before Metal Gear that never came to the States. I think there's like an English fan translation or something now called Police Knots.
Oh, really? And was it the woman that voiced her in Japanese?
Oh, I'm not sure. She looks identical to her look in Metal Gear, and I think she even has the same foxhound tattoo and all that jazz.
Wow.
Yeah, it was another game that Hideo Kojima directed. But I was going to say, inadvertently, you've also voiced like a space police officer as well. So there you go.
Cool.
But yeah. We've got another listener question. This is from a listener named Cole Duncan. He asks specifically if there are any lines from the original Metal Gear that you still remember to this day.
Well, I already sang them because that's the only one. La li lo lu. And I probably forgot it, but there's a really cool restaurant in my neighborhood, and one of the bartenders there is a huge fan. And when I met him and he figured out that I was Meryl, he was like, "Oh my God, la li li lo lu!" and that's her only catchphrase. Like, there's nothing else really that I can recall. Again, we never read those scripts more than one time. It's like you say the lines, and maybe you say it a second or third time when you're recording it, and then you never see it again. So other than that, there's really nothing. Is there anything you guys remember that Meryl said that was interesting? Johnny, stop farting. I don't know.
that about sums it up.
That was mostly your lines in 4 was yelling at him.
Right? And then it was so weird. It was like, and then we were getting married, and it was kind of funny. That was my only wedding ever. Actually, I've never been married, by the way.
Oh wow, your only
Other than
wedding ever
Johnny.
was with Johnny. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love knowing that.
I think what we covered the original Metal Gear Solid as our like first thing we did for the show, and then we recovered it a couple months ago, and both times we discussed how very strange. There's a point in the game when you are taken over by Psycho Mantis, one of the villains,
Oh, right.
and doing the kind of like the possessed voice and like
Uh-huh.
like
Oh, I
the
wish I knew what I said there.
you said because it was very what struck us about it was when you first meet Meryl, you're very tough, and like they make a point to be like you have these nanomachines, so you're not like you don't have any sexual attractions at all, and then you go into this scene and you're taken over by Psycho Mantis, and like you're saying things like, "Do you like me?" and "Make love to me." To
Right.
snake, yeah.
And as
Yeah, I
adolescent
remember
boys,
that.
we were terrified. We were like,
Yeah.
"What does she want us to do?"
As
What?
as adult men, we were terrified.
I remember working on that scene now with Chris, and it was very sexy, and it was like, "Do you like me?" I remember doing that.
Oh, no.
But I remember also there was a scene where I had to cry, and in the first one,
Mm.
and I'm in a bathroom, I think, and I'm looking in a
Oh,
mirror,
yeah.
Yep.
and it was very intense. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why I was sad. Do you guys know?
You were talking about, I think the character was talking about how she got into the military because of her dad and
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff.
and her
It was
Right,
very
her dad.
dramatic.
Yeah, I knew that to do that. Well, I was really crying, and that was, really an amazing time where, again, Chris Zimmerman took me to a great place, and it was very emotional. And so I don't remember the lines, but I
The
remember
feeling.
being so excited. Tsunade got very emotional
Mhm.
too, and it was I remember crying on that. In that recording studio as well, because my boyfriend had died and my kid brother, and there was a lot of emotion.
Oh wow.
That's crazy. So just to, because I know we're kind of getting close on time, and we definitely want to be respectful of your schedule. You won a Spike TV Game Award for voicing Meryl, specifically in Metal Gear Solid 4. Do you win awards often, Debbie?
That was the only award for voiceover I ever won.
Oh wow.
And it was super fun. I got to go to the Spike Video Game Awards. They didn't, it was funny. My friend that I was with, because they didn't announce all the winners, and I was one that they didn't actually bring up to the podium. I
Oh,
wish they
no.
had, that would have been fun. But he actually went backstage and somehow found out that I won. And so I actually have I have a trophy, a Spike video game trophy, but that's it. I've never, I love what I do, and I've had a wonderful career. And I think there are more people in voiceover now that are kind of going to more conventions and, going to awards, like putting themselves up for awards. And I've just never really done that before. There is an award show called That's Voiceover, and I am thinking of entering myself, only because I'm so proud of a couple things that I've done. But you have to pay for it, and it's all kind of like self-aggrandizing kind of things. And I'm just, that's not really who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'd be more famous, or if I tweeted, and I don't really do that stuff. I kind of, once I'm not working, I just kind of go and live my life and have a really good time, and I have a lot of friends,
Go
and
do your surfing and have a great life.
surfing and traveling, and kind of not doing that sort of thing. But it's okay. I kind of, sometimes I wish that I had done a bit more of it. And like I said, I went to that Blizzard conference,
Mm-hmm.
and it was odd. There were people who had done it a lot, and like girls were crying when they would meet some of these girls, and they were like, "Oh my God, you changed my life." And I just was like, yeah, I want to be out there changing the world in other dynamic ways,
Right.
rather than just being a voice that someone has fallen in love with.
Yeah. Well, and it's so weird too. I think because we talk about a lot. I mean, we've been talking about Metal Gear for 4 years, so we talk about a lot of weird shit sometimes. And I think,
how many times have you guys played?
Lord.
I mean, we've been playing these games probably since 1998.
I played Metal Gear
Um,
Solid. Metal Gear Solid is my first like video game like that I can remember, and I remember I
Yeah.
played it. It was so special to me because I played it with my dad. Yeah. So
Wow.
my
How old's your
dad
dad?
is actually, so when I turned 25, my dad turned 50, so he'd be yeah, so he
So
was
he
young
was
at the time. So he
young.
would have been so now he's like, yeah, so he would have been pretty young at the time. And we spent a lot of time playing that game. And so it has a special place in my heart. Snake and Meryl and all those
That's
characters.
very sweet. I was thinking of something just now when you were saying that, and then
Oh.
I forgot.
oh no.
Shoot.
It's gonna come to you at like
Oh
3 in the morning,
gosh.
and you're just be like, oh well.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, that's what I wanted to say.
Um,
Yeah, there's a weird I don't just to kind of walk it back for a split second. I feel like there is a weird with us running like a fan show for all intents and purposes. There is this weird moment when I'm reaching out to people for interviews where I know that you guys are probably reading these emails being like, ah, fuck, it's another one of these like super weird fan guys that are reaching out. And like, there's just such a level of weird projection and kind of, I don't know, like fans put so much on this stuff that I feel like it puts us in a weird divide where it's even like difficult to have conversations like face to face or even set up interviews just
Yeah.
because there's this like fanboyism kind of
Yeah.
rabid like
which is why
I
It's definitely, I mean, for me, I've only done a few interviews. I actually was on a show on YouTube. I can't remember the guy's
was
name,
it
but
the
I
Kodak? I
wrote,
think I just saw this not too long ago. The guy was like a young yeah is the guy's name. He's like an Asian
no,
guy.
no, no. That was on that's probably up on the web, but this was a guy's actual show about games, and he flew me to
oh
San
Oh
Francisco
wow.
and interviewed me, and it was fun. I just don't, because I'm not that involved in the gaming world. I just wonder if I'm even interesting enough to interview. So the times when people reach out to me like you guys did, I'm like, well, I don't really know the answers, which is why when you sent me the questions, I was like, oh no, we'll have a conversation.
and
We'll have a great
we spent
conversation
like
because you
5 minutes
had great
talking about
questions.
Radiohead and music, so like that's dope. Right?
Right. No, totally. And that's the thing is like, I'm more, I'd rather like have you guys get to know me as a
Yeah,
well-rounded person than just Meryl. Cause I am,
you're a
I'm
fully
me
realized
nerd.
human.
Well, I'm always on that path. I never
Yeah.
know if we're ever fully realized, cause then maybe that's when we
Yeah.
take our last breath, but I'm definitely becoming always.
That's awesome. Are you do you so and I want to ask this to just kind of get us kind of segueing into sort of the last throws. I do want to ask, like outside of voice work and outside of surfing and hanging out with your friends, I mean, do you have any like dream projects or passion projects, or are you secretly working on the next great American novel? Like what's what's happening?
Well, actually, I've been coming up with an idea for a
Oh.
coffee table book called Concert Magic, which is about um, all the concerts that I've been to and the people that I've met, the musicians like Bruce Springsteen and Roland Orzabal from Tears for Fears and John Anderson and Joni Mitchell, and I've had these moments in my life where I just happen to run into some of these people and have real conversations, not like fan conversations where
Hmm.
I just kind of, I don't know, just by chance I've met these people, and then sort of weaving in my own maybe biography about growing up in LA and growing up kind of outside the entertainment business, but being in the entertainment business, and then the magic around that. And so I'm up to that. And then I threw a party for 10 years called Family Affair, and I raised money for the environment. So I'm definitely an ocean advocate, and I haven't done a party in a while. So I'm thinking about getting that going, because that was a really amazing event. People came from all over the country and had 10 DJs a day for 2 days.
Oh
It
wow.
was a
What was that called?
it was called Family Affair. It was a 2-day event at the Standard Hotel downtown. And I did it for 10 years with 2 DJs, and it was an awesome, awesome party. And I raised money for a bunch of different organizations, Leonardo DiCaprio's company, and all kinds of ocean people. And then when Haiti had their hurricane, we raised money for them. And so it was a lot of fun. And I haven't done one in about 4 years. So I'm ready to throw a party.
That is badass. You should do that again.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, when you throw a party, let us know. That I'd fly up for that.
Yeah, definitely stay in touch, you guys.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be great.
What else you got as we wrap up here?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds good to me. It sounds good to you. I mean, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And
cool. Well, look for me. My next thing coming out will be a really cool Nike commercial. So nice. When you see women's soccer, and that's all I can say, you'll hear my voice.
Nice. Where should we send folks to find you? I know we pushed people towards an audiobook for Quentin Flynn. Do you have anywhere we should send people, like a website or Twitter or anything like that?
Oh yeah, DebiMaeWest.com, DebiMae WEST.com, and you can see lots of videos and commercials and promos and some of the cartoon clips, and Meryl's probably up there, and Mayev Shadow Song and Tsunade, she might be up there. So I'm always doing new demos, and yeah, my website's pretty fun, I think.
Nice.
Right on.
Well, thank you so much, Debi. This was amazing, and I was saving this for the very end. I got to talk to my first video game crush, so there we go.
I'm so honored.
It is very weird. I'm sorry.
I will never be able to walk into. Fred Meyer has become a very different experience for me going forward.
Well, I'll just end with this. What's on your list today?
Fantastic.
That's amazing.